Most people assume they know what Jews believe about death. They assume it looks something like what they already know: a heaven somewhere above, a hell somewhere below, a soul that goes to one or the other the moment the body stops breathing. They are wrong. What Jewish tradition actually teaches about what happens after death is unlike anything most people have ever been told. It does not fit neatly into the categories most of the world uses. It is not the Christian heaven and hell. It is not reincarnation as most people understand it. It is not simple nothingness. It is something far more layered, far more honest, and in many ways, far more human. And yet, for 3,000 years, the world has consistently misunderstood it, often replacing it with simpler ideas that are easier to explain, but are not what Jewish tradition actually says. Today, for the first time, we are going to look at what Jewish tradition actually teaches about death. Not what people assume it teaches, what it actually says. Welcome. What you are about to hear is a teaching that has shaped one of the oldest continuous traditions in human history, and yet remains almost entirely misunderstood by the wider world. By the end of this video, you will understand the Jewish view of death in a way that most people, including many Jews, have never had explained to them clearly. Before we go further, if these teachings have given you something worth thinking about, subscribe right now. One tap. Every week, this channel goes deeper into the wisdom and traditions of the Jewish people. And this community keeps growing because people like you believe these things deserve to be understood. Subscribe. And let's begin. Part 1. The first surprise. What the Torah doesn't say. Here's the first thing that surprises almost everyone who looks closely at Jewish teaching on death. The Torah, the 5 books of Moses, contains remarkably little about what happens after you die. Not because Jewish tradition ignores the question, but because the Torah's primary focus is on this world, on how to live, on how to build a just society, on how to treat other people. The Torah is far more concerned with what you do while you are alive than with what happens after you are gone. This is one of the deepest and most distinctive features of Jewish thought. Jewish tradition has always emphasized that the primary arena of human responsibility is here, not in preparation for the afterlife, here, now, in the choices made in this world. The Mishnah, compiled around 200 CE, puts it in one of the most vivid images in all of rabbinic literature. This world is like a lobby before the world to come. Prepare yourself in the lobby so that you may enter the banquet hall. A lobby. Not the destination, the preparation. And the preparation, according to Jewish tradition, is your life. What you do with it, how you treat others, what kind of person you choose to become. Part 2. The 3 realms. Now, what does Jewish tradition actually teach about what happens after death? The honest answer is, Jewish tradition holds multiple beliefs simultaneously and has never settled on one single, definitive account. This is not a weakness. It is, the rabbis would say, an honest acknowledgement that no human mind can fully map what lies beyond death. But there are 3 concepts that appear consistently across Jewish texts. The first is Sheol. In the Hebrew Bible, Sheol is described as a shadowy underworld, a place of stillness and darkness, sometimes called the pit or the land of forgetfulness. It is not a place of punishment. It is simply the place of the dead, where all the dead go, regardless of how they lived. As Jewish thought developed over centuries, Sheol gave way to a more differentiated picture. The second concept is Gehinnom, often mistranslated as hell. Gehinnom is not eternal punishment. The Talmud, in Mishnah Eduyot and Tractate Shabbat, is very specific about this. A soul's time in Gehinnom is limited to a maximum of 12 months. 12 months of purification, of reviewing what was done in life, of releasing what needs to be released. And then, the soul moves on. Only the utterly wicked, according to some sources, do not ascend after that period. This is why the Kaddish, the Jewish memorial prayer, is traditionally recited for 11 months after a parent's death, not 12. Because reciting it for the full 12 months would imply the deceased was among the most wicked. The Kaddish is an act of mercy, recited to help ease the soul's passage through this period of review. The third concept is Olam Haba, the world to come. This is where souls eventually reside, a state described in the Talmud sometimes as a heavenly realm, sometimes as synonymous with the Garden of Eden, Gan Eden, a return to spiritual closeness with God, free from the struggles of physical life. Part 3. The belief that sets Judaism apart. Now here is the teaching that has confused the rest of the world for 3,000 years. Most traditions, when they speak of an afterlife, focus on the soul. The soul leaves the body, the soul goes somewhere, the body stays behind. Jewish tradition does not stop there. One of the core beliefs of traditional Judaism, affirmed in the Mishnah, listed by Maimonides as one of his 13 principles of faith, and recited 3 times daily in the Amidah prayer, is the bodily resurrection of the dead. Tchiat Hamatim, the revival of the dead. At the time of the Messiah's arrival, Jewish tradition teaches, the dead will be resurrected, body and soul reunited. This is not a minor footnote. The Mishnah states directly, those who say that there is no resurrection of the dead will have no share in the world to come. It is listed as one of the essential beliefs of the Jewish faith. And yet, for centuries, many people assumed that Judaism had no belief in resurrection. This misunderstanding has shaped how the world thinks about Jewish theology in ways that are simply inaccurate. The Jewish belief in resurrection is ancient, documented, and central, and it predates its adoption by other traditions by hundreds of years. We are halfway through, and what comes next is perhaps the most surprising element of Jewish teaching on death, one that directly challenges one of the most common assumptions about who gets to enter the world to come. If this video is giving you something you have never heard before, hit the like button right now, 1 second. It helps more people find these teachings. And subscribe, because what comes next completely reframes the question of who goes where after this life ends. Here is the teaching that I find most striking about the Jewish understanding of death. The Talmud, in Tractate Sanhedrin, makes a statement that is both simple and radical. The righteous of all nations have a share in the world to come. Not only Jews, the righteous of all nations. In Jewish theology, entrance into the world to come is not determined by religious identity. It is not determined by which tradition you were born into, which prayers you recited, or which community you belong to. It is determined by how you lived, by whether you acted with justice, with kindness, with decency toward other human beings. Maimonides elaborated on this. Any person, of any background, who lives according to the basic moral principles that God has given to all humanity, has a full share in the world to come. This is, by the standards of ancient religious thought, a remarkably inclusive position. A position that does not require conversion to Judaism, does not require knowledge of Torah, simply righteous conduct, a life lived with integrity. The Talmud also teaches something about the nature of what awaits. In the world to come, there are no bodies, no eating, no drinking, no competition or jealousy. The righteous sit with crowns on their heads and bask in the radiance of the divine presence. Not a physical paradise, a state of pure spiritual closeness, the soul finally at rest after the work of a lifetime. Part 5. Why Jewish tradition focuses on this world. Now, let us bring this full circle. Given all of this, given the rich teaching about Gehinom, Olam Haba, resurrection, the soul, why has Jewish tradition always kept its primary emphasis on this world, on living well? The rabbis had a specific answer. They were deeply suspicious of any religious mindset that used the promise of afterlife as a reason to endure injustice in the present. That told people, suffer now, be rewarded later. That placed all the weight of meaning in a world that hasn't arrived yet, at the expense of the world that is here, now, suffering, needing repair. The Hebrew phrase for the Jewish mission in this world is tikkun olam, repair of the world. The Jewish tradition teaches that human beings are partners in the ongoing work of creation, that the world is not finished, that it is broken in places, and that the job of a human life is to participate in its repair. The afterlife, in Jewish thought, is real and meaningful, but it is not the reason for living well. The reason for living well is that this world, the one you are in right now, deserves it, because the people around you deserve it, because you deserve it, because the world itself is not yet what it is meant to become. 3,000 years of Jewish thought on the question that every human being eventually has to face. A tradition that begins not with a detailed map of the afterlife, but with a call to live well in the world that already exists. That teaches a world to come, but insists that the preparation for it happens here. That holds resurrection as a core belief, while never using it as an excuse to ignore the work of this life. that opens the world to come not to those who were born into the right family, but to those who chose to live with righteousness. What strikes me most about the Jewish understanding of death is not what it says about dying. It is what it says about living. That this world is the lobby, and every day we are in it is an opportunity to prepare ourselves for something greater. Not by escaping, by engaging, by repairing, by becoming the kind of person who is ready, whenever the moment comes, to walk from the lobby into the hall. Before you go, I want to ask you something. The idea that the world to come is open to the righteous of all nations, not just one group. Does that change how you think about the purpose of a life well lived? Write your answer in the comments below. One sentence is enough. I read every single comment. And the conversations in this community are some of the most thoughtful I have ever been part of. If this video gave you something you had never heard before, hit the like button right now. It helps more people find these teachings. And subscribe, because next week we are exploring another teaching from 3,000 years of Jewish wisdom, one that challenges something most of the world takes for granted about what it means to live a good life. You will not want to miss it. One tap to subscribe. Thank you for being here. Shalom.